How's it going, guys? Trent Freer here, and today I'm just at home and I thought I'd do another knot video for my channel. And the knot that I'm doing today is the FG knot, and it is a super slimline knot and super strong, but it is one of them knots that takes you a few times to tie and practice until you get it right. So on the scale of hardness to tie, it is one of them ones that takes a little bit longer, but then once you've done it a few times, it is a fantastic knot to have in the knot arsenal. So it is definitely a knot that you need to learn. I use it in my fishing when I'm chasing, cod and yellowbelly. But if I was going down the coast and I was chasing like GTs or some big pelagic species and stuff like that, where I needed like bigger line, I'd be using this knot because it just goes through the guides so well. It's one of them really slimline knots that's not really bulky, and when you're casting big lures or anything like that, it doesn't feel like it's going to knock the inserts out on your guides, on your rod. And it's also one of them knots that you can use for your micro guides, because there's a lot of rods out there now that manufacturers are making that have the micro guide system on them. And yeah, this is a perfect slimline knot that you can use for them. It's you can use it from 6 pound test all the way up to like 100 pound test if you really wanted to. Like I said, I use it for my cod fishing and yellowbelly fishing. So it's that roughly around that 20 to 30 pound, 40 pound and 50 pound test line that I use it for. So what I've got in front of me is I've got some whippersnipper cable because it's nice and bright and big, and also I've got some rope, and I'm just going to use these two at the start just so you can get the fundamentals and the basic and just see how the knot comes together before we tie it with actual fishing line. For my fishing line, I just took a reel off one of my rods. It's got 30 pound braid on it, and I've just got some 50 pound mono here that will stand out a little bit better on the camera, but I actually do tie this knot with this stuff anyway. Also, what I've got is some finger savers, and these are an awesome little invention. After scouring the internet, and I've seen a few videos where people use these are really good for tying your knots, especially this one, because you have to put so much force into the knot so it embeds down on your leader line, and to make it nice and tight and know that that knot's going to hold throughout the day. Also, when you're using mono line, it's really good. This is a really good knot for that because it's a softer line, so it embeds down and bites down on that leader line a lot easier than fluorocarbon. But you can still use it on fluorocarbon. But when you do use fluorocarbon with this knot, I've found, compared to both of them, the mono and the fluorocarbon you need to really pull down onto this knot as hard as you can to embed the braid into that fluorocarbon line, because the fluorocarbon has a harder shell on the line. So we'll just go into tying the knot now. So I'll just start off with using the whippersnipper cable and this nice bright rope, so then it just makes it a lot easier to see how this knot comes together. So what I like to do is, I'm right-handed, I have the leader line in my left hand and I get the braid coming in from my right. So what you need to do to start off with is give yourself a nice little generous tag of your leader line, roughly about 4 inches or 100 mil I like to have poking out, and then pretty much just a little bit more with your braid, so probably about double. And what I like to do is start with my braid towards me, and then I come over the top of my leader line. And when you're coming over the top, where you're holding the leader line in your fingers, just pinch your braid, or in this case the rope, and then go over the top of your leader line and just let it hang down. And now you have essentially 2 bits of line, or your braided line, that you're going to tie this knot with. Because the FG knot is scaled basically on a Chinese finger trap. And essentially what the Chinese finger trap, if you've ever seen one, or just get on Google and have a look at one, but they're a especially woven finger trap that essentially when you put your fingers in it and you try to pull away from the Chinese finger trap, it just bites down on your fingers tighter and tighter as the harder you pull. So the harder you pull, the tighter it gets. And this is what basically this knot is based on. And yeah, if you really even could call it a knot, because there's not actually that much knots tied in this that it actually makes it a knot. It's just more about the interwoven braid across your leader that bites down, and then it actually embeds itself on that leader line. So we'll get to it. Like I said, start away like close to you over the top of your leader, and always like to start with the tag end first. And there's a few different ways that you can tie this knot, and this is just my preferred method that I've found over the years that works best for me, because there's some other ways that you actually need to put tension on the line to tie this, but I've found this works really well for me and I've just stuck to it. So here we go. Start with your tag end. It's going over your leader. So what you want to do is start away from you, come back towards you, underneath that leader line, and then back over the top. And that's half a wrap. And now with the main part of the braid, which is the rope now, is you start from underneath and then come over the top and back towards you. And once you've done that, that's classed as one wrap. So you've got to repeat this process. Well, I repeat this process 6 times until I get 6 full wraps. So we'll go again, tag in, start away from you, go underneath the leader, over the top, and then get your main line and come back over the top towards you, right beside the other one, and then that's classed as 2. So you've got 2 wraps now, and then we'll keep on going nice and slowly until we get to 6. So you tag underneath, over the top and away from you, and then your main, underneath, away from you and towards you. So that's 3, and then just keep on working your fingers that you're holding the knot with just along the line. So you tag in, underneath, over the top, your main line, underneath, over the top towards you, that's 4, and then back to your tag, underneath, away from you, over the top, and then the main, underneath, away from you, that's 5, and then back to your tag, underneath, away from you, and then back to your main, underneath, towards you, over the top, and that's 6. So I'll put it up nice and close to the camera now, and you can see how the rope has sort of crisscrossed over the whippersnipper cable, which represents your leader line. And so when you pull this knot tight, which I can't do with the rope and the whippersnipper cable because it just won't do it, I don't have the physical force to do that, but it all snugs up really tight and embeds down right into that leader line that you'll be using. So that's just the basics, or what the knot looks like in a blown up proportion with the whippersnipper cable. And I just thought I'd do it this way to start off with, so you can get an idea and the basics of how to tie this knot. So when I'm doing it with my actual fishing line, I'll do this once and I'll do me 6 wraps. I'll hold it in my teeth and I'll just work it up and down until I get that nice and snug knot, just with a bit of pressure, and then I'll continue that process twice. So now we'll get back to actually using the fishing line, and I'll show you how the knot goes all the way through right to the end, and you can see the finished product. So we'll put this aside, and then like I said, I'm right-handed, so I've got my leader line, 50 pound. Hopefully the camera can pick that up fairly well. I just like to give myself a nice little bit to work with. Just get my reel here and I'll click it out of gear, and then get my braid. So like I said, I'm right-handed. I like to use the leader line in my left hand, and I'll give myself about 4 inches, 100 mil, roughly about that. It doesn't have to be exact. And it's just repeating the same processes. So with my braid, I'll start off closest to me, and then I'll come up to where I'm pinching it in my fingers and got the braid, and I'll make a nice X, and then I'll wrap that just over the top of the leader line just to start off with. And now I'll start the knot. So with my tag end, I always start with the tag end. You come down underneath the leader line, over the top and away from you, and then get your main line or your main part of your braid that goes down to your rod and reel, and then go underneath the leader line, away from you, over the top, and then back down, and that's classed as your first wrap. So I'll just go through quickly now, and I'll do me 6 wraps, and then we'll go from there. So I've got 1, so I'll go 2, 3, 4, and don't be scared to just readjust your fingers. 5, 6. So once I have all 6 wraps done, I'll grab the tag end and the main part of my braid. I'll put the leader at the end of the leader, like the tag end of the leader, in my mouth, and just hold it in my teeth. I'll wrap the 2 parts of braid around my finger a couple of times just for a bit of grip. Same with the leader line. And just underneath the knot, I'll put my thumb, and I'll just work it up and down a little bit to snug the knot down. You don't have to go super tight, but just to neaten it up. And then once you've neatened it up, just go all the way down, pinch it with your right hand, or whichever hand you prefer, and then back into your fingers on the other side. And then all you do is just neaten it all back up, so you're back to where you started off, and then we'll do another 6 wraps. So with your tag end, always start with my tag end, away from me, underneath and over the top, and with the main line underneath, towards me and over the top. So that's my first one, my second, my third, and then just move your fingers along, my fourth, my fifth, and my 6th. And then once again, I'll get both lines, grab them, put it in my teeth, just wrap them around my finger a couple of times, same with the leader line, and just work it up and down just to snug it down. And then once you've snugged it down, just slide it down, you know, about 20 mil, 10 mil, just to get to some new line, and then pinch it off and hold it all together. So what you got there is the start of the FG knot, and it's all nice and snug and neat, and that's what you want from this stage of tying the knot. So all we do is to lock all these wraps together is a couple of half hitches is what I do. You can do 1, but I just prefer doing 2. It's just my way that I've preferred to tie it. So you get your tag in, just put it out of the way for a second, and get your main part of your braid and your tag end of your leader, and run them along each other parallel. And now what you want to do is a half hitch around both of them. So I just sort of pinch it in another 2 fingers, and then it doesn't matter if you go underneath or over the top, it doesn't really matter, but as long as you do the next one opposite. So I'll go over the top to start off with, do my half hitch, grab it in my teeth, and just slide that down and snug that off. So now that holds my FG wraps all into place. So like I said, I like to do another one just for good measurement. So the first one went over the top, so I'll go underneath, just in the opposite direction. With half hitches, it's always best to do them opposite. And then just snug that one off. But yeah, like I said, the 2 lines going parallel. So your main part of your braid and your tag to do your half hitch over. And then just snug that one off. And now you've come to the fun part of the stage of tying this knot, and that is pulling it tight so it all embeds down on your leader line. So this where these things just stand alone out there, like they save your fingers, because if anyone ever has used braid before and tying knots, you know how much it can cut into your hands. So what I will do is I'll find a link to these bad boys and I'll chuck them in the description. But you could also use a couple of bits of doweling, like little bits of wood, and to pull really tight. I've used lip grips before. I've used oars, but like small aluminium oars. But the thing is, they're a little bit slippery. But at the start, when I was first tying this knot a few years back, I was just using anything I could, like a hand towel, a jumper, and all that kind of stuff. But you just had to be careful. If it slipped, you'd end up getting cuts in the back of your hands and stuff like that. So that's why these little finger savers, because essentially all they are is just an aluminium ring, and on the middle of it they've got an insert that's rubber, and that just helps grip onto the line so there's not too much slippage. So we'll get back to the knot now, and it doesn't matter which way you start. I'll just start on the leader side, give it about 2 or 3 wraps, and with the braid just double that so it doesn't slip. Go around little finger savers or whatever you've got, just so you can get this knot nice and tight. So now, once you've got everything lined up and locked in, you just pull with all your might. I just like to wet it down just a little bit, and then all you do now is just give it as much as you can. So now I've done it once, I like to get the tag end of the braid and just straighten that up a bit, and then just snug down them 2 half hitches I did. And now once again I'll give it a pull with all I can, just to help that embed right down on that leader line. So I'll give you a quick look of what it looks like now before we finish off the knot. But here we go. So I don't know if the camera will pick that up, but you can see in some spots where the braid has just embedded itself on to the leader line. But you can see right now, before the knot's finished, how slimline this knot is, and that's why it just goes through guides just smoothly, as you really don't hardly even notice that the knot is there when it's going through the guides. So it's perfect for casting, for me, big spinner baits, big bumblers, big hard bodies, and you know, big swim baits and stuff like that, because it just cruises through the guides so well. So the way that I finish my FG knot off, because there is a few ways that you can do, you can tie or end up finishing this knot off, but this is just my preferred method. So the way I like to finish my FG knot off is I like to trim the tag off to start off with. So your leader tag, I just get it down and just leave the tiniest little bit, like a millimeter, if that, and then just snip that off. If you can see, the camera picks it up, there's hardly any there. Some people like the super glue and all different sort of things at this stage, but I've found I haven't had to need to do that. But the way I finish off my FG knot is I've got my main lines going parallel, and then I've just got my tag end, and to finish off this knot I do a half hitch, but I do multiple wraps in that half hitch, so I'll do 3. So I'll just start my half hitch, and once again, it doesn't matter if you start under or over. I'll just go through once, twice, 3 times, and then I start to snug this down. So I'll go nice and slow, but you want this to all sit right at the end of this knot, nice and neatly, and wrap over just that little bit of tag end of your leader. And then that helps protect this knot from when you're casting it and just winding it back in. So I'll just slowly get it down there. So you just keep on pulling it back away from the end of the knot. And then once you get to that stage and it's over the top of it, I just give it a nice snug down with my teeth. And now, just to finish the knot off completely, I do 3 half hitches. So I did over then, so now I'll start under and just do a single half hitch. And snug that down. Then go back to over. And then back to under. And that's it. That's the finished FG knot. All I need to do now is just to trim up that tag of the braid. So I'll get the old scissors and I'll just trim that off with a couple of mil left on the end of the tag end of the braid. And there we have it. That's my version of tying the FG knot. I like it I prefer to use this method because there's no needing to have any tension on your lines at all. So when you're out in the boat or anything like that, or just on the bank and you don't have anywhere really to comfortably to sit or anything like that, to have a bit of tension on your lines to tie it. And I've found by tying it this way over the years, I've never really had it fail, only from when I first started tying this knot, and obviously I wasn't doing it correctly. I think there was one time that I cast off a 150 mil lure and then the leader just kept on going. But ever since then, and I've got to really know this knot and I tie it well now, it hasn't failed me yet. And it's just one of them knots that you can just keep on pulling, and the harder you pull and the more tension that gets on this line, the more this knot will dig into your leader knot. So there you have it. That's the way that I tie my FG knot. It's definitely one of them knots that you need to know because it is just, there's nothing of it. And it makes a dream casting, and casting lures all day. So if you like this video, give it a like, and don't forget to cruise over to that subscribe button and subscribe to my channel. So until next time, guys, get out there and catch a fish.